Oh, hello, good evening. This is Professor George Lees talking to John Patterson in the south of England the day after the Scottish election referendum results have been released, and John has quite stunned me by declaring that Alex Salmond today has resigned from his career as the head of the Scottish Nationalist Party, despite their massive predominance in the electorate, the elected government up here. They have a massive majority in the Holyrood building, and all Salmond needed to do to be free was to tell the truth about the tyranny in Westminster, and Scotland could be free within a fortnight. Instead, he opted to stay within the cabal and to keep taking the cash. But John has wowed me that his resignation has come so quickly. But I want to talk about some of the issues that are happening south of that bloody border, and in particular a character called Lord Boateng, who, like many of the life peers who are particularly potent in brutalising the world, is actually a Labour life peer, given his peerage by Tony Blair, the legendary man who takes Britain to war all over the Middle East, where he is an envoy still. At what time today did you learn that Salmond had resigned, John?
Well, so I've been out on the bike most of the day, and it's there on the, because I don't have a TV. I won't have one in the house. It was on the internet.
I'm the same. I can't afford Murdoch's products now in the 75th.
Oh, it's not the case I can't afford it. I just won't have one in the house.
Well, God bless you for that. So let me just tell you something about what the man Boateng. His name is Paul Boateng, Paul Yaw Boateng, and when you see the yaw word and the jawbone issue, you realise it's about Jehovah and religion, and it's a joke on religious themes. This man is a devout Christian. He's a lay preacher. He was born in 1951. He's still a British Labour Party politician, and he was the Member of Parliament for Brent South. He was educated in a town called Hemel Hempstead, and I used to live in Hemel Hempstead, and I'm close to many of the residents still. I've talked to several on the phone this very week, and Hemel Hempstead is very close to the town of Berkhamsted, where I worked for the Wellcome Foundation, which is a big pharmaceutical organisation, and Hemel was the headquarters for Eastman Kodak. You remember the Kodak firm that was one of the world leaders?
Yeah, wasn't Paul McCartney's first wife the daughter of the Eastmans? Yes, she was.
Possibly. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
They have in the centre of Hemel Hempstead. They have a massive tower block that has now been converted to a block of flats. That appear, block of flats everywhere appears in our boiler room interviews almost daily. But it was genuinely the Kodak building in what is one of Britain's new towns, and you'll remember that in, was it 2007, that they had a massive fire in one of the BP oil plants there?
Yes, they did. It was huge, wasn't it?
I've got no news to deal on that, but we were in New Zealand then, and because we were so close to the people in that town, my whole family were in panic mode about whether or not, any of our family members or our loved ones had been impacted upon by what might have been a terror event, but what just looks like an accident at the end of the process.
Yeah.
But Boateng was brought back from Ghana, and let me just give you a transcript of what he's done in his career. So he first enters. He was born in 1951 in Hackney. His missus is called Janet Boateng. They have 5 children. He was educated at the University of Bristol and a school in Hemel Hempstead that I will refer to later. And he went then to become he tried to become Member of Parliament for Hemel Hempstead, but he became a Member of Parliament for Brent South, and when he got there, he said, "First Brent South, next Soweto." as if he was going to liberate the free world. Yeah. He then became the Parliamentary Under Secretary of State for the Department of Education and Employment, Minister for the Disabled, in office between 1997 and 1998 under Tony Blair, and preceded by Alistair Burt, who may well have been the Burt that was head of the BBC, but I cannot swear on that. And guess who succeeded him in office at the Department of Education and Employment? Her original name was Oppenheimer. Have you learnt from my interviews in the past who that is now?
Yes, but the name slips me.
Margaret Hodge, the head of the UK financial regulatory organisations, and at the trough, like all of the other characters that we portray. Okay, then in 1998 to 2001, Boateng became the Minister of State for Home Affairs. So he's on the cabinet now, and then he became Financial Secretary to the Treasury between 2001 and 2002. He only was in there for a year, which frequently happens. You must have noticed that David Laws, when they launched the coalition deal, was only in office for a fortnight before he was accused of sexual scandals and renting homes for his boyfriend, and then they were able openly to declare that they, like the Labour Party who had preceded them, had actually emptied the Treasury already within the fortnight. Yeah, this is how it works now. They steal from the people and they make grandiose statements about what they're going to do to make the country decent again. They are actually massive financial criminals, and when you hear about this guy's role in the munitions industry and the powerful cabal with which he is intertwined, I believe that you will be shocked. Before then, between 2005 and 2009, before New Labour lost their power base and they were able to declare on Gordon Brown's desk that the Treasury was empty already, he was by that time the British High Commissioner to the Republic of South Africa. Now you know about the fascist links with South Africa since Lonro prevailed down there. They were led by Roland, whose real name was Feuerhop, and he's a Nazi pure and brilliant, and he was the unacceptable face of capitalism, even for Ted Heath. Yeah? So this is a succession. This man is a coloured man, he's a black man. He spent some time in Ghana, and he had to flee from Ghana because of the insurrection and the violence that was occurring there. When he fled from Ghana, he settled in Hemel Hempstead, where he attended Apsley Grammar School. He read law at the University of Bristol. Now that is not the school that I was led to believe that this guy attended, which is, let me find that in my other records, actually Longdean School. Now if you look him up on Wikipedia, there is a conflict there. His secondary education was at Longdean, and he's one of its most famous scholars, one of its most famous alumni. They've now changed the Wikipedia transcript to make it look as if he went to another school, and other people that I know in Hemel Hempstead use the same deceitful methods, and they try and tell you that they were from another school, possibly a Catholic school, and when you ask them to clarify, they are unable to account for themselves. But let's move on, because that's relatively trivial. Boateng has 4 or 5 different registers on the Directorate. Let me just tell you some of the highlights that I marked down last night about what they do. He's got a couple of companies called Aquen Law. Now one of them's live and one of them's dormant, and you know what that means already. Yeah, it means that they're laundering shelves. And he shares the role as a director in Aquen Law with his Mrs. Janet. Okay, and he's got his second listing on the registry. I've noted it only because he's involved in the museum sector and the Planet Earth Institutions Limited, and his overlaps of directors there include people of the magnitude of the Youngers, you know, the people that go to the tax havens.
Yeah.
There's Fonsecas, there's Fernandezes.
George, has that got anything to do with the brewery family, Younger's Brewery?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, they were based in Edinburgh for a long time, and they are, I can't remember their landed gentry, whether it's the Tweedsmuirs or other estates in the Peebles region, I'm not terribly certain. But that's relatively irrelevant compared to the fact that they win massive contracts from Britain for decades. They participate in the warmongering in World War II. They're allowed to live for the whole of their days in the tax havens, and they don't pay a cent of tax, but they manipulate the government from that source. His third registration, and this is the biggie, is that he's on the board at Aegis Defence Systems Limited and the Duke of Edinburgh Trusts. And when you begin to look into his interlocks, then you see how powerful this guy is. You know, he's fled from Africa, he's fled from Ghana, he's found a safe haven in one of England's new towns, right on the doorstep of the Rothschild dynasties that we talked about a fortnight ago. Yeah, the massive mansions that they have in that region. The region is very close to the Stocks house that we talked about, where, you know, the South African rugby team Saracens were the owners of that for a time. The corrupted cricket magnate Philippe Edmonds was the owner of that place. Yeah, it's right on the doorstep of Hemel Hempstead where we used to live. And I used to make a decent living in the pharmaceutical company. The people that I used to work for in that pharmaceutical company are now, as you know, on the Forbes and Debrett's rich lists. Okay? And there are very few jobs left in British pharmaceutical industry events, because everything is globalised and everything is a fraud project where no tax is paid and the patients are dismembered by profiteers at the interface between GPs and specialists in hospitals, and the profiteering interface is what drives it along and makes up to 40% of GP salaries across the UK.
That's over prescribing.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they get a massive bung to prescribe by volume, so that when Granny stands up, she's incapable of standing up. She falls over and she's in the care home at £600 a month.
Disgusting.
And people from Hemel Hempstead have said to me that they will litigate against me if I keep revealing truths like I just did. And I told them, bring it on.
Yeah.
I have nothing to hide. We have a thing called force majeure behind our campaign of genuine information release. Let me now try and find out what Boateng's... I've revealed for you a little bit about his history and how he's been head of the Treasury in the UK, but let me now see who his colleagues are on the... Shit, I can't find it. It's Aegis Defence Systems Limited. Have you got your computer open and running?
Yeah, sure.
If you can find Aegis Defence Systems, you will be wowed by the people. You know, it's full of field marshals and listings of household names, but for some reason I had it open before. Oh, here we are.
Aegis Security. It's AEGIS.
Yeah. Aegis, AEGIS, Defence Services, registered at 84 Eccleston Square, London, Southwest 1, 1PX. I'm not sure what that stands for. Southwest 1V 1PX. Have you got it?
Major services.
Now, just
I like the I like the pyramid.
where is that?
If I've got the right page, professional consultancy compliance services. Or is that a different one?
Aegis Defence Services Limited, 0454 1965, 84 Eccleston Square, London. I have not got financials. Let me get the financials for them. The summary of the financials is that their net worth is 41 million, which is relatively chicken feed in this day and age. And they've got assets of 66 million. I don't know what the structure is, but then if you have you got the site for Aegis Defence Services Limited?
Yeah, this is the one in 39 Victoria Street.
No, it's 84 Eccleston Square.
Well, hang on, there's several, George. I've got Aegis Defence Services Limited.
Well, tell you what to do. You click on the directors for that address that you're looking at. I did not realise that there was more than one in London. Let's see if there are any overlaps between the current directors in two potential Ponzi shells. So click on directors and see who you get. I'll scan down mine and I'll cite the highlights for you. You'll know this one because it's very prominent in the Able Danger Traitors listings. He's a relative of Winston Churchill. Can you guess who I'm referring to?
Go on.
The Honourable Arthur Nicholas Winston Soames.
Oh,
the fat bloke. The fat profiteer.
Grandchildren of Winston Churchill,
Yeah. Field Marshal Lord Peter Anthony Inge, General Sir Roger Neil Wheeler, Instant Companies Limited. You know the implications of them?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Thin blue line, you cannot see for how long they served because it's either a day or a week. No longer than that. Lieutenant General Sir Graham Cameron Maxwell Lamb, David John Miller, that's a religious joker. The Millers, the Mullers in Germany, all on the same side in every conflict. And this is a munitions company. Okay? An Armstrong, a Davidson, I don't want to get into the Davids, Swift Incorporations Limited, Sir John Birch, Mr. Timothy Simon Spicer. You remember that name?
Yes.
The arms to the World Wildlife Fund locations, all across sub-Saharan Africa, the mercenary armies that Bowden and Eyre have talked about. Yeah, and those are international crimes that don't involve monarchy members, so they're prepared to talk about it openly.
Down the bottom of this, you've got Swift Incorporations.
Yeah, so you're on the same page as me. Did you open that other... Are you looking at an identical list and a different business address?
No, I'm now looking on Company Check.
Alright, but so what were you telling me that you did not have Eccleston Square? You had another address for Aegis Defence Services Limited?
Where is it? I've got so many windows open here.
So if you have another look at what you found at that different address and you scan down the directors, we can have a look and see.
Well, they're also on Wikipedia. They're in Australia. I mean, it's all over the place, George.
Okay. I mean, because I was only tracking Boateng. Boateng's at the bottom of that list.
Yeah.
So can you read me from one of those other addresses where you've opened up the listing of directors whether or not Ing and the field marshals are also on that company? Because if they are, they're overlapping, and you know the implications of that?
Jesus, there's so many listings.
So can you see household names in your list? We'd better move on because we're wasting a lot of time.
Yeah, go on.
But so tell me again what their registered address was and what their company number is. The other firm that you found.
This one is, this one's Safety, Environmental and Risk Management Consultants, Aegis.
Right.
There's dozens.
Okay. Well, you know, that's the way the world fails to work now. They have so many globalised subsidiaries. Yeah. None of them pay a cent of tax, which is why the treasury is empty. And when you think about this man Boateng being a religious person, a Christian, and a lay preacher, and you think about his role on a company like that, to profiteer, and we've just declared that he had to flee from Ghana for his own safety, but we've just declared that Tim Spicer is on the board with him.
Yeah.
That's the mercenary army leader that has brutalised vast tracts of sub-Saharan Africa, and now is with Alan Bond in the elite yachting sector, wherever it is that he has found his refuge. They got token prosecutions, but they were let off with it. Yeah, if you want to understand more about Spicer, look up Peter Ayer's articles.
Okay.
Okay, so now I've got links for Boateng, and he's got 4 or 5 different business directories, and then I stumbled on an interlock, and I believe that a lot of the things that we discuss are actually portrayed in Hollywood as a joke. You know, we've talked about The Shining, we've talked about all the things that happen in the religious frauds, we've talked about the Great Escape movies and all the jokes that they share, we've talked about what's the place where they have the Batman beside the prisoners of war? Colditz. Yeah? All of it is hilarious if you're an elite profiteer in wartime. And when they make jokes about the imbecile king who made the king's speech and it wins an Oscar, then you know that you're being laughed at as just an ordinary citizen. So I'm very interested in the Notting Hill film, and I'm very interested in the Indiana Jones, a university professor tries to save the world joke. So I find somebody on Boateng's interlocks called Alan David Jones. Now, my boss in Dunedin in New Zealand, who was a South African, yeah, and I've just told you that Boateng is the diplomat and the politician that is responsible for the Republic of South Africa for 5 or 6 years. Okay? We've got a Dr. Jones, as in the Indiana Jones movies, and I noticed when I looked at the registration, not that he's working out at Otago University, because they would not declare that, and it may not be anything to do with the Professor Jones that used to be my boss, but when you look at his holdings and his directorial roles, he's got 90 different companies, and the interlocks are massive. Let me just scan down it, because I've highlighted some of them. He's into all sorts of G4S Regional Management UK and Ireland Limited, G4S Utility and Outsourcing Services UK Limited, G4S 308 UK Limited, Ponzi Shelf, G4S Overseas Holdings Limited, G4S Government and Outsourcing Services UK Limited. 90 of these. Okay, and then we can go down and look what you then do when you find Dr. David Jones, or I forget what his first name was on this listing, and you notice that a lot of these things are TNT Transport Europe Limited. It's big multinational transport systems, Ansett Aircraft and Spares and Services, TNT White Arrow Express Limited, TNT Newco, another Ponzi shelf, yeah, TNT Transport Europe PLC. So this is a globalised infrastructure company, Sayers Offshore Parcels Express Limited, and the links that you then find when you look for Alan David Jones's interlocks as a director with other companies are quite astounding. Let me just take you through them. First we go to somewhere that is very close to the Prime Minister's drinking clubs. You know where that is now, John, don't you? Please. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You've got a woman called Juliet Louise Nance Kivell Jones, who likely is Dr. Jones's missus. Registered address, Cherwell House, Little Chew, Chipping Norton, Oxfordshire. Now the name Chew also impacts on people who are friends of mine, and I just want them to know that I know that everything that they are doing is dismembering our country's capability, and I do not fear threats of litigation, because we have hit on the Prime Minister in Chipping Norton multiple times within the last 2 years, and he has not raised a finger.
Yeah.
Well, they could, because that's the way that they keep their power base. They take people like you and me out, and you know that well. Yeah? David Cameron does not do it himself. He does not have a gun in a tea towel. He just appoints people to do it for him. But I don't know that David Cameron is guilty of things like that. When you hit on David Cameron, he changes his policies. When you hit on Tony Blair, he brutalises the Middle East and he kills 2 million innocent bystanders in an unjustified campaign. That was when Boateng was in the cabinet. Okay, let me go down to another interlock, and there's massive lists, really massive lists. If you look up that man Jones, and here I've got now all of his interlocks, and I'll just scan down it quickly to get the yellow hyperlinks. Now this is a joke that you will understand. Last week, 2 weeks ago, we talked about the links between rural Hertfordshire and Chipping Norton and the south end of Birmingham, and then we went up to Derby. Can you remember the Roman road that is profiling?
Was that the Icknield?
Yeah. Now, here's a joke for you.
Yeah.
Investors in excellence have on their board Mr. Alan David Jones, potentially Dr. Jones, or potentially my old boss. But his co-director is Mr. Ian Keithnield. So if you take away A-N and E-I-T-H, you get Mr. Icknield. Yeah, and they think it's really funny to profiteer from the world's taxpayers, and they slot little jokes in like that all of the time. Let's keep going. I'll keep looking for the highlighted things. The Duke of Edinburgh's International Award Foundation. Now this is Dr. Jones's interlocks again. First member on the list, HRH Edward Anthony Richard Lewis Wessex. Do you know who that is?
Is the Earl of Wessex?
It's Prince Edward.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, is that the one who's married to Sophie? Or is it Edward and Fergie?
You got me there, George.
Well, this is Prince Edward, whichever, I forget which one is married to which wife.
Yeah.
And I think it was Prince Andrew that was married to Fergie. So this is Edward, who, if Greg Hallett is correct, his wife was shagged on her first night after their wedding by one of the ancient royals. I can't remember whether it was Prince Philip or Lord Mountbatten or who it was, but Hallett told a horror story about Princess Sophie being a victim of the prima nocte rituals that were portrayed in the Braveheart film.
Yeah.
The next director is related to the Woolwich false flag news releases. Can you guess who that is?
No.
Mr. Adebayo Oluwale. Yeah, they just insert a name that looks like the terrorist to cover up the financial criminal. Well, being on a board is not a financial crime, but I want you to realise the magnitude of the power base that these people have. Then you've got Boateng listed on that company. Then you've got HRH Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. So this is a humble man from the ghettos in Ghana, and he's interlocking with people that are in the royal household. And then you've got someone else who looks like an Arabic presence, HRH Princess Rama Hassan. Okay, I'll keep going down until I get another Mr. Andrew John Edward Hodges. That's one of the dad's army jokes. You remember Hodges was the air raid warden?
That's it, yeah.
Mr. Graham Deverill. That is a direct reference to the name Devil with a ER, which means monarch, thrown in the middle. Yet all of the names tell you a lot of the truth about the elite bloodlines that keep running the profiteering exercises. Then you've got a famous name for you already, Phoenix Film Partners LLP. Brian James McConnell, McDonald's, Lord Michael Ian Grade of Yarmouth, that's a relatively local name that intrigued me, but it's not a national issue. Clive Everett. Now I've put there, is this one in the P&O empires? You know about Michael Ellis Moore, who I believe will be my MP Michael Moore, the quisling batard who will not let me meet him and is demonising Islam to cover his financial crimes in the massive ferry and, you know, the ships that you used to work on with the onboard casinos. He's the director at 80 of those. And Everett, when I looked for it, is indeed involved in that network with the woman Scott that I'll talk about later on. You remember the film that we talked about where Hollis, what's his name? Notting Hill.
Lord Hollick, you talking about?
Notting Hill.
Notting Hill, yeah.
The heroine, the woman from America, I forget who the actress was. Her name in that film is Miss Scott. They are sharing a joke about one of the biggest cabals in the business sector in the UK. Miss Scott is on this listing under Dr. Jones's friends. Now here we get Mr. Geoffrey Reginald Mitchell Milburn. Have you heard of the Milburns, the fascists in World War II?
Okay.
Landed gentry as well. There's a Mr. Graham Charles Henley. All the characters in The Great Escape are also jokes. Henley was the blind guy who could not pick up the pin but got shot as he came out of the aeroplane. You remember that?
Yes.
And they think it is really funny to replay all of these things and to have a laugh at the poor innocents who they are rendering fundless and driving into austerity. Henry Richard Francis Elphick, Auf Wiedersehen Pet, the actor in Auf Wiedersehen Pet who played the very violent Irish labourer.
Yes.
Mr. Hugh Christopher Edrund Fernley Whittingstall. We did not get him into the last video because it came up right at the end. Mr. Ian Winton Cameron. I don't know who he is. Mr. James Edward Malarkey, also tied into the Auf Wiedersehen jokes. James Carragher, the football magnate from Liverpool. Jamie Carragher. John Michael Tarrant. I'm quickly scanning through it. I'm only naming one name in 15 or so. It's a massive list.
Yeah.
Mr. Neil David Kitchener, you've heard of the Kitcheners, the pointing the finger, who would soon become the war dead. But that, if we're led to believe correctly what Greg Hallett says, then Kitchener was killed by Churchill because he was a professional soldier and he was in a position to end the war 2 years before Churchill chose to end it so they could optimise their profits. Mr. Neil Lyndon Mark Blair.
Blair.
Yeah, I don't know whether or not, is that a relative of Tony?
Well, that's his middle. That's the name he gave when he was caught in the toilets with that.
Oh, God bless you, John. I did not know that. He's got.
Yeah. That's the name he gave the police.
So you should look up these listings for the Dr. Jones character. When you listen to the thing again, click on the names that I'm identifying you. So it's Mr. Neil Lyndon, Lynton, Marc, Mark Blair. Mr. Neil Lyndon Mark Blair. He's got 29 active companies. He's dissolved 17 of them, and he started off with 46. It would be really intriguing to click on that now. I did not know that it was as important as that. I thought it might just be a relative, because I could not see the name Anthony or Tony anywhere in it. But you know that's the way that they do the deceit.
Well, when Blair was caught in the toilets with that other guy, that's the name he gave, Lyndon.
Right.
His real name.
And I don't remember that. We must have been in New Zealand then, I think.
Yeah.
So somehow or other I've gone right down to the bottom of the list. Let me see if I can find him again.
The list is so long. You've got.
Well, it is massive. So shall I go on to some other names? I mean, we can, but there's a major on the listings.
Yeah.
It's everybody that we talk about. Almost always, when you close the loop close to the hub, you get the same list of names and the same list of financial criminals. But I just wish I could find Tony Blair again. Wolfenden. Oh, there's Miss Scott. I can't miss her out. It's a bugger. I've lost my place on the listing. But this is a listing for directors that interlock with Mr. Alan David Jones. And it is vast. It is massive list. Sandra Margaret Major. There we go. Sir Peter Parker. Was Peter Parker something to do with the 7/7 bombings? I thought Peter Parker had something to do with the van company.
That was Peter Power, wasn't it?
Oh, sorry, I'm confused with that. Mr. Michael Edward Murray. You know the Murrays run Scotland, and another one that runs Scotland, Dr. John Reid. You know the John Reid who was the head of the inquest into the Chinook crash in inverted commas. But because that story was told me by Peter Eyre, I don't know whether or not there's a crock of truth in it. I still can't find that. Blair, Leamington. Tennant. There's the Tennant. Let's just carry on down. So that you think that was Tony Blair in person?
Well, I mean, he gave, when he was caught in the toilets with his boyfriend.
Tony Blair in the you're not thinking about the pop singer?
No. He gave a name of Linton.
Oh yeah, right. I was completely unaware of that.
Yeah.
So we must have been in the South Pacific then. Mr. Martin Fines, you know Ranulph?
Yes.
Don't know whether it's a relation. G4S Regional Management Limited. So let's move down into that and see who's running that. John Reid, Baron Reid of Celtic. Mr. Michael Edward Murray, the profiteer at Rangers, who sold Rangers and defrauded the fans several times. His parent company is registered in Dunedin for tax reasons. Dunedin is in New Zealand. Mrs. Sandra Margaret Major. Now she is huge. She's crashed 47 of the 50 companies she has run between 2001 and 2008. So you can spend hours on this, looking up the deep dark secrets and the theft projects that these people are involved in as leaders of our nation. Let me see. I'm only about 1/3 of the way down the list now. It's going to take ages unless I move on, but there's Miss Scott of Notting Hill fame. She has crashed 306 of the 316 she's run. She is involved with Michael Ellis Moore and the P&O empires and the shipping empires. 80 of Michael Ellis Moore's companies have been crashed. She works out of London, but they have very close links to the Walter Scott Foundation and to the Abbotsford Trust up here. And you know, we talk about that all of the time. That's the owners, the landed gentry that run all of the cabals up here in Scotland for centuries. Since way before the Braveheart film was made, the same people are in charge of the country. They don't come from here, they come from the south, or they come from France, and they completely control it using the Freemasonic system that you understand so well.
There's a Tony Blair Sports Foundation trading company here, but it's got cash of zero.
Have you clicked on his name in this list under Dr. Jones, like?
No, I'm just on all the stuff listed under Tony Blair.
And did you use those middle names? I can't remember what they were now. But when you listen to this video again tomorrow, as you make the comments on it, you can look for these people and actually see. I mean, you could give another lecture to me tomorrow night to tell me what Tony Blair is doing in those 50 registrations that he's got. I did not know it was him. Thank you for that. So I've got a relatively blank bit where there are no yellow highlights. Combined Secretarial Services, G4S. There are hundreds of G4S listings in this single list under Dr. Jones linked to Boateng. And it is just amazing. Miss Sandra Margaret Major again, she's also on that company. She's actually being used as a secretary rather than a director in a lot of the scams, or in a lot of the legitimate business. I have no idea what they do, but one can hazard the guess that they are making massive profits. None of it is declared, and all of it is sold offshore so that nothing comes back to the treasury.
How much money do these people need?
I have no idea. It's impossible. And I cannot afford to get the registered documents that they have to file, but Gordon used to be able to access that, and now I believe that he's got a salary stream, that it becomes obvious that his wife can go to South Africa and he can still afford to get all the corporate documents, but he will not let you talk about the world owners. Leslie Ann Wolfenden, I think that was also a munitions magnate. Digby Lord Jones of Birmingham. Mr. Benedict Ian Stimson. Loads and loads of household names. Tates, Varneys, Stitzers, Mr. John Charles Steele. Now that could be Sir David's people, or it could be an equerry to the Queen that are also involved in some of my recent issues involving loved ones and family members. Mr. Jonathan Adair Turner, you've heard of him?
Yeah.
Yeah, married to Rothschild. Was it Barclays he was in charge of? What we got? What else we got? Nicholas Hood. Oh, Sir Christopher Jeremy Morse. Why is the Morse name so famous?
Kate.
No, it's M-O-R-S-E.
Oh.
As in Morse code.
Morse code, yeah.
Posnell UK Limited. So I've gotten way below. Oh no, here we go. Now this one's interesting, because I've mentioned Saracens Rugby Club before in the light of the fact that Saracens Rugby Club owned the Stocks Mansion, that is now owned by a person who was a former employer of mine, relatively decent man, but very, very close to the Rothschilds dynasty, and he's been my employer as an Englishman from the south on the River Tweed as a fishing gilly, and I was scammed out of that job by the Freemasons on another beat, and I've told you about that, where I was asked to kill fish during the embargo on killing fish by a man who's a lord in the House of Lords since Mrs. Thatcher was in power, and has been in charge for much of that time for negotiating EU fish quotas. It is absolutely vicious. He's a leading Freemason, and he is a desperately sad person. Tries to coerce innocent people by getting them to commit crimes in the sector that he is leading the world in, and he was prepared at lunchtime to denounce the Spaniards as fraudsters because they got 7-mile-long fishing nets. But the name here that has drawn my attention is a rugby name. I don't know whether you're a rugby follower, but there's a chap called Michael Lina who played rugby for Saracens in London for best part of a decade, and was part of the Sky TV globalised rugby team as commentator with South Africans, with New Zealanders. He had a massive heart attack, and I believe that he may have died in hospital in Australia, because the new guy looks very different to the old guy, and very seldom now do they put him on, but the name is Catherine Elizabeth Lina, and all the rest of the way down the list her name appears. I cannot see any reference to Michael Lina, the rugby player who had the heart attack, but it could well be that same dynasty, because they're incredibly influential. You come to the City of London and you impact on Sky TV as a presenter, you're big time in the mainstream for the profiteering. But this is all conjecture. It could just be an innocent passerby named Lina. But I do have major objections how in the sporting professional world all of the money has disappeared right at the top of the game. Yet the people that are appointed as chief executives are there to asset strip the sport in every country where the sports are conducted, and you know the menace that is the sporting tournament diversion. Takes the minds and hearts of the people away from the crimes of the politicians in that region. And everywhere we go to host an Olympics or a football tournament now, there are massive protests on the street because the citizens have to pay for the buildings.
Exactly.
It is just ruthless. And when you revealed for me that when Germany were beaten, Brazil were beaten 7-0 by Germany, was it a fixing scam?
Yes, because my mate in Switzerland, Dr. Sean Ross, exposed that scam, because FIFA is based in Switzerland. Those South American players were paid millions to throw that game, and who wouldn't? I mean, they come from poor families.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing was a scam.
So these are interlocks, and I've gotten below where I've put the yellow highlighter on it now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to another list, and this time it's all on interlocks to Boateng. Okay, so all of what I've been reading out lock in to that person who is a left-wing cabinet member, head of the Treasury, a Christian. Yeah, a Christian figurehead, a lay preacher. Let's now go to another interlock, and this time we have Edward Anthony Richard Lewis Windsor. Prince Edward. Now, is that the same name that we revealed above? Because it's a different way of proclaiming it. It was a very different title that he had above. This one's registered out of Bagshot Park, Bagshot, Surrey, GU 195PL, and let me see, he's registered as a director, Duke of Edinburgh's Award, Worldwide Format Management Limited, Ardent International Sales, Ardent Communications Limited, Ardent Films Limited. They're all into the film, false news, launder it away before it gets up to 1 million, and then you're immune from regulation sector. There are 6 or 7 Ardent listings on the Prince's list. Outward Bound Global, the Duke of Edinburgh's International Award Foundation. Now that takes you into Theon, what's the name of the man who retired that we were hitting on the other week? William Hague. Theon Hague, William Hague's sister and William Hague's wife are both bound into these networks.
Yeah.
Then we get another tab on my list. This time it's prominent Olympians and magnates, also registered under Edward Anthony Richard Lewis Windsor's Interlocks out of Bagshot Park. Now this one is big. You've got HRH Edward Anthony Richard Lewis Wessex. Now that is the same man, is it not? That's a question. So Edward Anthony Richard Lewis Windsor, and then Edward Anthony Richard Lewis Wessex. That, I get confused by the royal labels and the genealogy, but I believe that must be the same man. And you've got again Adebayo Olawale, the Woolwich killing.
Yes.
Just a slight change in the spelling, and all of a sudden you've got a news item to fool the people. And the real crime is in the financial services sector. You've got Westons, Quecks, Bells, Isas, Lord Honourable Lord Paul Yaw Boateng. He's the common link. Again we get here HRH Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, and let's keep going down. So all of these are interlocks to Boateng, and we now get into the Stagecoach empire. Can you remember the names behind the Stagecoach team? Anne Gloag and Brian Souter.
Yeah.
Scotland's richest woman, who's won a law case to keep anybody off her private land in Scotland, where everybody has the right to roam, provided that they do no malicious damage. Everybody in Scotland, anywhere in Scotland, has the right to roam. They're trying now to take that away everywhere you go, and Levy and McRae set that precedent in law on her massive estate in Perthshire, near Dunblane, near the school, near Andy Murray's birthplace, which is why Andy Murray was picked for prominence, like the footballers are picked and are given names like Maradona, the religious joke.
Yeah.
So this one's for David Veitch, because when I saw the director's name I thought, this is a TV celebrity, and it could be the rector at Dundee University, where I've speculated about him having the most difficult to find alter name on the directorial listings. It's Brian John Cox, C-O-X. But it's not a Dundee man. The registered address is Kirknewton House, Kirknewton, Wooler, Northumberland, England, NE71 6XF. If you're listening, David Veitch, please do a little bit of trawling for Brian John Cox, 900-143-683. He's right in the heart of your region. Let me just reel off how many holdings he has. I believe Oh, it's only two dissolved companies, so it's relatively innocent. It was just the name that caught my eye and our proximity to Wooler, which is very close to the Duke of Northumberland's poisoned garden and the town of Alnwick, where they have that massive Harry Potter castle. He's linked into a number of massive bus companies, Stagecoach included. And they're globalised. GM Buses, Rigby's Coaches Limited, Peterborough Bus Company, Stratford Blue Travel Limited, Stagecoach, Thameslink Trains, Circle Line. I could go on and on and on. Another name that caught my eye in Boateng's overlaps is Kinski. Kinski is a film actor that I used to admire in films about arts and the Amazon jungle and getting ships up to the top of mountains. So it sounds a bit fantastical and a bit difficult to believe that I could admire films like that, but believe me, I did.
I remember that movie. Yes.
It was so abstract that you think, what the fuck is this about? And why should I watch it? And why should I waste my time on it? But it was compelling, and I still don't understand the answers to all of those questions. And the director, Herzog, is now in one of the bloodlines that has displaced, you know, remember the Stuart family that were involved in the battles about the Jacobite rebellion?
Yeah.
So the Herzogs in Germany are now apparently, if you can believe Wikipedia, the legitimate claimants to that. If you look up Herzog, you'll see that they have massive mansions that they look bigger than Versailles. And so I just the name Kinski, but this is not a Germanic one. They're registered in the Northampton Business Park. And again, oodles and oodles of stagecoach and bus companies. Then you get Miss Scott, which I believe is the Notting Hill joke. Oh no, this is Sandra Margaret Major. Registered address, the Manor House, Upton Bishop, Ross-on-Wye, Herefordshire. Now that's another fishing region which I've visited with my wife, and it's a lovely, lovely place. It's very near to Hay-on-Wye, where they have the Hereford, where the legendary book festival.
Yeah.
You know about that? And again, G4S all the way to the bank, North Wiltshire Schools, Whitehorse Educational Partnership, G4S Regional Management. So you've got an educational sector magnate who's in charge of private security and multiple subsidiaries of. Then we get Aegis again, and I think that will be just what we've already visited. Swift Incorporations, yeah, that's the same list of names. Field Marshal Lord Peter Anthony Ing. Then we get the Miss Scott, which links us to the P&O movement. P&O Finance Limited, P&O Finance PLC, European Ferries Limited, British India Steam Navigation Company Limited. This is the interlock to Michael Ellis Moore, registered in Dubai, who I believe is my shamed MP. He has 80 resigned directorial holdings at those companies that we used to transport my now dismembered family, because Michael Moore will not allow me to get a job in this region along with the local Freemasons. Yeah, I've been rejected from every university opportunity that I've applied for. The people that sit on my boards in judgment are petty criminals in the NHS sector. I can name names if you wish, but I'd prefer not to, because I'm now in a position to start looking for work again. And it's the only way I can get the respect of my family back. The family believe that I am wasting my time trying to expose why society is dismembered. And when you go to a job interview in a leading university where they're involved in pharmaceuticals, they bring in civil servants who are involved at St Andrew's House, who are Scotland's leading pharmacists. That's my profession, I'm a fellow of it. I cannot afford to pay the fees to rejoin it, because they will not allow me to keep a job. What they do is they defraud Scottish patients. They give an education that is virtually worthless to the people, and they then tell you that they have the best student satisfaction in the country. And when you apply for jobs and they have to find someone else to do it, they give the job to someone who used to work with you as a senior lecturer when you were already a professor. And they have no excuse for that other than this man is a menace to the corrupted system, and we need to keep him suppressed and jobless and impoverished, and we need him to lose the respect of his family so that we can get him out of the news headlines that mean that Alex Salmond has to resign the day that he fails to take Scotland into freedom. Okay, that's a little bit personal, but Miss Scott is involved in the London registered companies that have got the ownership of all of those massive transport magnates. All of the ships that you used to work on are under Michael Ellis's Moore's thrall, or used to be, but there is now, if you look up Miss Scott, you'll see who the current directors are. And I explained to you the Costa Concordia scandal and the KKK joke that represents. So there's the P&O director listings, and it confirms that Michael Moore and that Everett character that I referred to earlier, they just keep cropping up. It's very difficult to miss. Once you know they exist, and once you get near the hub of the spoken wheel model, you know that you're going to find the same people there. And there's the I was quite stunned that almost all of these interlocks to Boateng. This is the director this time is Nils Jorgen Philip Sorensen, so a Scandinavian name, and he's registered at CH 1008 Jukstens Meservie, Lausanne, Switzerland. So this is G4S Switzerland.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. They've got Magyar, like a joke about Magyar, which is Hungary, Sorven Jet Express Limited, eCover UK Limited, registered in Switzerland, Farncombe Estate Adult Learning Centre. Oh no, sorry, these are all registered in the UK. It's very unusual to get this much information for a European company. Aquiva Thames Key Limited, Grensec, Group 4 Securitas Alarms Limited. How many times have you seen the alarm bell on the side of the retail establishment with that name on it?
Yeah.
System 4 International, Henderson Security, G4S PLC, Group 4 Falk Limited, Dormy House Hotel, Farncombe Conference, Skagen, multiple G4Ss. There's 7 of them. No, 8, 9, 10 of them all lined up in a row, all trading over overlapping periods, and it's just amazing that this man Boateng, you know, with his roots in the new town and all the deprivation that he's been subjected to and the falsification of where he went to school, and all of it leads to an empire of power, and he professes to be a Christian preacher. And so that's just about the bottom of what I've got to say, and I'm sorry that I could not get you more. You should look up the name.
This is a new name to me, George. I mean, it's just endless, isn't it?
Well,
it just goes on and on.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of that was the list for Dr. Jones, but no, it's all under Boateng, and you've got links to Chipping Norton, you've got links to the former Secretary of State for Scotland. I know that embroils a large chunk of Northumberland where I used to live. The people that are still friends with Michael Moore work in the shipping industry. Some of them are the parents of my PhD students, and all of them have betrayed me. All of them are earning massive salaries. Some of them I used to be an amateur coach at the rugby club with them as a volunteer. I did not have much respect for some of them then, because they were ponces. They used to prance about in colourful tracksuits and drive fast sports cars. But you should see how many directorships those people have now that are linked into the P&O empire. I've not named any names now, but I know that almost everyone that was picked to be a colleague of mine or was picked to be in my team in New Zealand is actually a plan to keep an eye on a threat to the tyranny and profiteering that runs the world. And it is amazing how disappointing it is when you learn that everybody that you've been a friend with is actually there to monitor what you do and the truth that you reveal. I'm quite stunned by the magnitude of it, but I'm quite stunned also by how God gets back at them for that treason and for that breach of trust, because a lot of them, their children are referred to very, very important psychiatric services. Some of the children are drug addicts already. Some of the parents and some of the colleagues have died in hang glider accidents. And when I get in touch with them now, they know that that is happening to them because they have stood in the way of one of the world's most upstanding and innocent and honest men. And I fear for the people that desert me. I try and convince them that there is a God, and the best thing to do in life is to be God-fearing and to do the morally upstanding thing for the world's people.
Exactly.
Very few of them can grasp the danger that they place themselves in by neglecting the decent cause. But now the politicians are aware of it, and the media men are aware of it, and you know that that is now why they make cartoons rather than appear on screen. So the Father Ted things and all the Superman things that we talk about again and again, Hollywood know that it is unsafe to make a heretical or, you know, sort of a joke at God's expense and to make it live on telly. What you get then is what, who's the man who wore the red fez at the Palladium and died on? Yeah. You know, one of the world's leading Freemasons does the sand dance, jokes at the Egyptians' expense all the time.
Do you know, I'll tell you a little story, George. Tommy Cooper's brother had a joke shop in Battersea.
Right.
And we used to go in there and buy all sorts of, you know, stink bombs and stuff. And it was his brother's shop. Oh, going back 30 odd years ago. And
there's a big link, isn't there? And I think that, you know, some of the other Able Danger followers that I'm in touch with around the globe have a much greater belief in this than you. But there is a big occult thing, and there is a big witchcraft thing tied in. And, you know, I've had run-ins through all of my career in New Zealand with people who were administrators in my team who were magicians.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And you know, they now will not talk to me at all because they know the potency of my campaign of truth. You know, when I hit on them, they get massive floods and things in that region. And when I write to the economics department at Otago University to people called Wilson, who are in the laundering sector, and they used to be respected in the medical school where I worked, which is why I get in touch with them. You can see that they're working in the economic sector, but when they know what you reveal, they just tell you to fuck off. And I've got the email from them, and I'll send it to you tomorrow to show you that they know that we know now that the criminality is global. The methods that were used in Finchley Road are now used in universities and polytechnics across New Zealand, and they have a stock market that made me really nervous in my last 2 years in New Zealand, because what they do in the stock market is to asset strip every viable company. They get rid of the jobs, they release virtual products, and all of a sudden you have no economy left, which is the state that Britain is in now.
Yeah.
Because everything goes offshore so that they can commit their crimes in registered companies, either in the House of Lords or in the House of Commons, or in the Ponzi schemes that are related to those, using George Soros, JP Morgan and the Parliamentary Foundation for Democracy Limited and all of those Phoenix subsidiaries that Lord Michael Grade runs.
Yeah.
It is just shameful, but we've gone way over the 20-minute limit.
This was going to be 20 minutes.
Yeah, so it's 70. I'm sorry to drone on.
No, it's okay. But listen,
can you have a look at Tony Blair's holdings under that name that I gave you there?
Yeah.
And see what you can uncover for me, and we could make another video tomorrow night, because I can't really find very much on him. You got all the banter about what he was doing in the Leveson inquiry, and it was his private security people that came in and took the protester away, and that Australian protester, unless it was a false news flag, then he spent a year in jail, like the man who jumped into the boat race 2 years ago. Yeah, Tony Blair gets away scot-free because he's got a private security company to look after him, and the innocents who protest against his grand larceny and his economic theft and all of the genocides that he's committed as envoy to the Middle East, they get jailed. He gets to have holidays with Assad and take Assad's wife on shopping trips.
Incredible.
Well, it's not, it's just treason.
Yes, and they get away with that.
But thank you for getting back in touch, and I'm sorry that I cannot take Britain's media seriously. I'd much rather make videos like this, and you're right, I should not rant for more than 20 minutes at a time because it becomes less and less absorbable.
Yeah, because a lot of the last bit was quite astounding, but a lot of people won't understand the company check part. Well,
you see, what I want to happen is what David Veitch is now doing, so that you can get a lead from me that I did not appreciate was important because of your knowledge of history of the tyranny and the New World Order. When I say a name, it resonates in your head like it will never resonate in mine. But I have not got the time to go back and redo the research I've done over the last 4 or 5 days. But if you spot a name like that and you make a note of it, then tomorrow you can tell me what every one of those 50 companies were that Blair was involved in. And you've got Major's daughter, I presume, or his wife. I don't know whether it's a daughter or a wife. But when I raised that name the other day, you said, "Oh yeah, I know her." And if more and more people can get the mechanics of how to dissect what the public figures are doing, then we can change it. And tomorrow night we should make a point of trying to make a video on how easy it is to commit identity fraud in the business register. And that is a massive issue, as you now appreciate.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for getting back in touch, and thank you for taking it all so seriously.
George, I had to lay low for a bit, but that's another story. But, okay, should we wrap this one up?
Yeah, thanks, John.
Cheers, George.
Night night.
Cheers.